right, we are live. Welcome back, everybody. I know seeing me twice in 2 weeks is crazy, but today we are joined by a special guest, Mr. Stefano from SPX Labs. Thank you so much for joining, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, tell everybody in the chat a little about you, about your channel, and yeah, what you got going on.
Sure. So, a lot of you probably have no idea who I am, and that's fine. But basically, I make videos in the home lab. It's a glorified vlog because I'm typically always messing around with stuff. And then, of course, I dabble working with brands and making videos about products every now and again. But the focus is mostly to actually use the equipment and show you how it can be used. Trying to sell you guys stuff too often because I know how annoying that can be when it's like constantly on YouTube and just every channel is like selling, selling, selling. So I try to actually like focus more on the useful side of all the hardware and stuff. And that's generally what the channel is about. And of course, I also write blog posts or little articles, if you will, for like self-help and then also like guides for certain things, mostly for Unraid or Linux related um, things.
Yeah, perfect. Let me switch. Jeff, thank you so much for dropping the fat donation right at the beginning of the stream and gracing us with your presence. Grab a drink on me. Boom, done. Just like that. And a little echo. Yeah, I just realized that I don't have my headphones plugged in. I forgot to do that. So let me change that really quick. That should be better. Okay, I think we're good. So hopefully that gets rid of the echo.
I think so, but
All
I think
right.
now your mic source changed.
Oh no. This is what happens when you go live. Let's see. Oh, I changed the mic. I'm an idiot. Let's do this. And now let's do this. Okay. How's that?
Delicious.
All right, perfect.
I just realized I can actually respond to you and I'm not in chat.
Yeah. Turns out being live has some issues, and we're both learning as we go. But yeah, thank you so much, Jeff. I hope you feel better. I know you have a touch of the the sickness right now, but hopefully you do better. That's what happens when you go on cool trips to the UK and get to see all those cool Raspberry Pis and other cool projects. You know, that's just the price you pay. Who we got in chat right now? Let's see. Nighthawk ATL, what is up, my man? We got Nightman, so that's, I guess they're brothers. That has to be. Will Smith, thank you so much. We have fixed those audio feedbacks. That was on me. Robert from Tech Addressed, welcome. Jason, welcome. Welcome to the stream. We are going to be hanging out, talking about tech stuff, from networking to what's it like being a YouTuber to AI to Apple has released some cool news about making their iPad more of an actual computer. So we will get into that as well. But yeah.
Were
First
we supposed to
thing,
discuss these talking points before we went live? So I didn't. Half of those don't sound familiar.
no, you just wing it and make up stuff as you go, and just use big words to make yourself sound smart.
Like
And
onomatopoeia.
yeah, god damn, dude, that's this dude knows what he's talking about. I know on your channel recently you've switched to or have been using a lot of Omada products lately, and that brings me to my first topic of someone getting into home labbing or wanting to set up more specifically home network. What would you recommend them go with today, Omada or UniFi?
Well, as everything in the IT world, it depends. Mainly on
Absolutely
your
not.
budget, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So the TP-Link Omada line of products tend to be cheaper for the most part than um, UniFi. And of course, they're much more available, so you can actually buy the products for multiple sites and multiple vendors. Mostly because TP-Link has that economy of scales, unlike Ubiquity. But UniFi is much further along, I think. So if you want something that's just going to work out of the box, be a lot more stable, and you're willing to invest more money, that could be the way to go. TP-Link, with their Omada stuff, has a lot of growing to do, I think, and it's not a complete environment or ecosystem actually, like UniFi is, right? So UniFi, you've got the UNVR or camera system. They're probably moving to smart things like sensors. Um, we're having like being able to unlock doors. You got the VoIP system. You have this like entirely complete environment. And on the Amada side of the house, everything seems like it's missing currently because they have Tapo and Kaza and VG. I don't know how to say it, but they have a IP camera system as well. But currently, that's not integrated at Amada, and all their other products seem to be separated. Now, I know that with the Amada line, they are adding sensors, but I don't know how that's going to work in the future. And I don't know. I think you could go either way. It just depends on, I guess, what you expect out of your network, like how secure you want it to be. But then if you throw PF Sense in there or Open Sense, you can kind of tighten up those firewall rules. You could go either way. I would say it's mostly based off budget.
Yeah, that's. I think that's what a lot of people have kind of come to the conclusion of. I've used both. I still use both in my network. One thing, like you mentioned, is that Omada, you can go out and just buy it in most places, especially Amazon. I was surprised when I went to Micro Center the other day that of how much UniFi stuff they actually had on the shelves in Micro Center, because I didn't really expect to be able to go into a brick and mortar store and just walk out with a bunch of UniFi equipment. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I had a friend recently go to Micro Center, basically say the same thing. They are missing, I guess, some products depending on what you're looking for. But yeah.
Yeah, they had like this is a fun game I like to play. Go on the UniFi store and see what's out of stock or what's in stock. You think I'm joking, but I do that quite often. Like,
no, yeah,
I'll
I check every morning.
There, yeah, I'll go on there and be like, I wonder what they got in stock these days.
Yeah, there's the UI Notify bot, right? And it tells you more about what's out of stock than what's actually in stock.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of useless. Or it's
This
not
is
really useless, but
yeah, this is the one I've been trying to keep my eye on. I don't think I'm actually going to buy one, but this is like my next. If it's in stock, I'd be tempted. The Switch Enterprise 48 PoE, so
nice.
Never having to decide if you want to use your 2.5 or 1 gig ports. You just have 48 2.5 gig ones, and then 4 10 gig SFP plus. But then, you got to pay $1,600, which, is not a small amount of money. And I think this is kind of, when we're talking about Omada versus UniFi, I think these types of products are where Omada is kind of lacking. They have quite a few, switches, PoE switches, really solid access points. But like the more, I don't want to say this is fully enterprise, because the actually people out there might tell me that UniFi is not enterprise. Don't call it that. But the more like advanced home lab, like hyper nerd type stuff, like 48 2.5 gig with 10 gig integrated. I don't think Omada really has anything of that caliber yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Yeah, so I'll be excited when they get some stuff like that. I'm a big fan of their products. I like both. So
their access points are amazing.
Yeah, they do make good access
points. They work
really
well. And what's cool is like they work really well in standalone mode too. So you don't even have to buy into the entire ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like you said, UniFi is so much more, like, I think it's way more integrated in terms of other features. You have the protect system, you have the talk system, and you have the access system as well, all built
Yep.
in to that one ecosystem. And I know Omada, like you said, with the cameras, they do have that type of thing, but it's not as well integrated as
I don't think it's integrated
UniFi.
at all, actually.
Oh,
Like,
it's not? Okay.
yeah, in the Omada controller, I don't believe there's any way to, go to like the
Right.
Protect app or whatever. I mean, obviously it's
Yeah.
not on the Omada line, but I don't think they're integrated at all currently. And they just started releasing those cameras. There's a new one that has been converted, like the EU version's been converted for the US use. Um, so, like, but there's no way to integrate that currently.
Yeah, like
It'd
if
be
we go
interesting.
look at, yeah, like if we go to their Omada, the TP-Link page, and look at the switches that they provide. So they do have quite a few switches, but last I checked, there's nothing like that really top tier to compete with UniFi. So they have 48. Oh, what's this? Oh, 48 1 gig ports with 4 10 gigs. So that's still pretty solid. Multi gig though, last I checked, they didn't have too many of those, if any.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, once they get into that aspect, that field, I think it'll be more. I think you'll see more like hyper nerd advanced home lab users give it a try.
Oh, thanks, Jeff, for tweeting out to come watch the live stream. Appreciate that.
Jeff, did you only do that because I'm wearing your merch? Is that the only reason? Go to Jeff's store, and if you want to cosplay as a sysadmin, get yourself a nice yellow shirt.
Speaking of merch,
Oh, I didn't even
favorite
notice you're
shirt.
wearing it. Nice. If you want a shirt from a much less popular YouTuber, then head over to raidowlstore.com and get yourself a Camp Home Lab shirt.
And he
And
totally paid me to say this, but it is super comfortable, and
yeah,
I actually really like it so far. I haven't tried any of the other shirts, but all the colors that you have available
yeah,
look awesome.
hell
And if they're
yeah,
the same quality, I'm gonna be super happy with it. And I've watched this thing a few times now. Hasn't shrunk, no damage to any of the ink or nothing. So pretty happy with
hell
that.
yeah. All right, yeah, the contract has been fulfilled. You'll get the money from PayPal after the stream. Perfect.
Sweet.
Skull says, yeah, really waiting to see something like an Omada Pro series or something like that. Yeah, like kind of a little beefed up in their hardware line. I'd like to see maybe less. Like this is so many switches, but I don't think any of them kind of fit that tier that I'm looking for. So I don't know. I've talked to some reps over there and told them what I'd like to see. Whether or not they actually listen and care, I don't know. But yeah, I agree. Let's see. But yeah, I mean, in
I want to
terms
see
of
them add. Sorry, I want to see them add their SFP modules to the site, because trying to buy their SFP modules or DACs is kind of a nut roll. Like, there's
yeah,
no easy or quick way to look at them on TP-Link's website, as far as I can tell.
yeah, I think they'd benefit from a UniFi-esque store, kind of a more well put together store dedicated for just Omada stuff. I think that would be beneficial. But then again, you can go on Amazon and buy their stuff too. So yeah, I don't know. I think if you came to me today and said, I'm setting up a new network for my home lab, what should I go with? I think, like you said, it's heavily influenced by budget. I've done a video on Omada where you can get a pretty solid little startup kit for like $300, and you're good to go. So, I mean, it is what it is. That kind of brings me to the next thing that I've heard people say, and I thought it was pretty funny, and that is UniFi the Apple of network products? I've seen quite a few people refer to them as the Apple of the networking world.
Oh
Do you
yeah.
think there's any merit to that?
It's 100%. Yeah, like so I made a video a while ago where I was looking at the G4 Pro and installing it on my house, right? And the entire time I was making a joke about it being an iPhone 12 because I think the iPhone 12 came out and lots of people didn't like that and were disliking the video, but I don't think they were, I guess, the same community of people that make the joke that they're like Apple products because the way that they've been boxing their um packaging their equipment, it's actually pretty top tier. And
Yeah.
it reminds me a lot anyway of Apple products in general.
Yeah, I think when someone said that, I thought it was funny because I do see the the similarities when you consider that it's not quite enterprise grade stuff. It's more consumer focused, and it's what people consider, more high tier when it comes to budget and quality. I mean, when you look at UniFi stuff, it all looks really nice. Like I feel like when you're setting up UniFi stuff in a server rack, you're just like, man, this is what keeps me in a UniFi system. Those little LCD screens, everything's nice and gray. It looks fantastic in the server rack, and that's something that Apple prides themselves on is aesthetics.
Yeah, and their ecosystem. Like
Yeah,
Apple wants
that
you
is
to buy
true.
in their ecosystem, and it's hard not to continue buying into the unified ecosystem or whatever.
That is true. One thing, so I agree 100% with that, and I've actually wanted to go with UniFi cameras as my surveillance system, but God, it's so much more expensive than going with literally any other surveillance system. And I think if I wasn't a YouTuber, I hate saying that, sounds cringe as hell, then I probably would have. But trying other products and trying other solutions just makes more sense to me, and it's more entertaining to be able to do that for YouTube. But they do make it extremely enticing to stay within their ecosystem. Just with how everything is so tightly integrated. And like you said, that is very Apple-esque. Once you get into the Apple ecosystem, you're pretty much in. And I can say, I think I bought my first MacBook in college, and I used that for a bit, and then I sold it. And the only Apple product I had was my iPhone. And then I got a Apple Watch, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Just links to the phone, does everything. This is nice. And then I
Probably
wanted
gets
to
you
start
just a little bit at a time.
I know. And then they started. Then I started wanting to develop iOS apps using Swift. So I was like, well, I need a MacBook for that. So, maybe I'll go back to the MacBook. And I got one of those. And then now I find myself with the AirPods. Well, I'm not using those for this, but I got the AirPods. I got the iPad, the MacBook, the watch, the phone. I'm like, how did this happen?
You got
It
the
just
Apple
happened.
Card, the Apple Savings account.
I actually don't have that. I'm not
Not
that
yet.
deep into it. Yeah, not yet. Yeah. Just as I'm planning on frigate. I don't know how to say that. Frigate? Frigate?
Forget?
Frigate. Frigate. Press why are you giving me these words I can't say, Jeff?
Hike.
But I've heard of those. When I was looking up surveillance like systems for my house, I was like, oh, let me go on Amazon, surveillance cameras, and there's just like hundreds.
There's too many options.
There's so many. It's almost like, how when you search for like any product on Amazon or whatever, and you just get like the hundreds of different like random like Chinese brands. You're just like, I don't, and they're all exactly the same. I feel like that's what I was going through when I was searching for surveillance stuff.
It's very overwhelming. And that's part of the reason why I even got into Ubiquiti in the first place is because I wanted IP cameras but I was
Hmm.
so overwhelmed with Hikvision and Dawa, I don't know how to say that. And you look at all these little specs and you're like, wow, this is great. You hit up ipcamtalk.com or that whatever that forum's called, and you start filtering through there and you're like, well, I'm going to be missing out on this. And then you need something to host it on because you don't want to use their UNVRs, or I'm
Hmm.
sorry, their NVRs, because the interface sucks. And they're like, everyone's like Blue Iris,
Hmm.
Blue Iris. And it's just like, I just want this to all work in one simple system. And at the
Yeah.
time, that was Ubiquity um, video, or UniFi video. I mean, and I was like, I'm gonna try it out, and if I like it, I like it, and it was great. It was great right out of the box.
Yeah.
It was responsive. It was fast. Most NVR systems I've ever used have always have some like major problem. They're too slow to respond. They take too long to load. There's always something that just holds them back.
Yeah. Give a shout out to Rich from Two Guys Tech. What up? Welcome. Welcome to the stream, my man. Good to see you here. And Mr. Nighthawk says Reolink is good stuff for the price. So that's what I eventually went with, was Reolink, based on reviews, and it was a product that I'd heard about, I guess, before. And there's a couple of good things and bad things, I guess, about the Reolink. I actually have to finish editing a video for upgrading anyway. But good thing is their cameras are cheap. They're pretty good quality in terms of the video quality. The features are decent. And the one thing that I really liked is to set everything up, you don't need to create any type of like a Reolink account. You don't need to create anything. You can just plug it and go. And it's annoying that that's something you have to commend a company for these days. But like,
Yeah.
how many times have you just like bought a random product and you just go to use it and it's like, oh, sign up with our app. You can't use this until you've signed up with an account with us.
Like
And I'm just
TVs.
like,
Like
yeah,
why
just
do I have
stuff
to
like that.
log
I'm
in
like,
to use my TV?
yeah, I'm annoyed that I have to praise that as something good, but
Yeah.
you know,
Shout out to TP Link because they're a model line. It doesn't require that either.
or that's
Apparently.
true. Yeah, and the bad thing is, like you said, the interface. Oh my God, I covered it on my first video about when I initially set up the cameras. The phone app, the web interface, the desktop app, and the NVR interfaces are all different, and they all can do or not do different things. And it is the most mind-blowing, annoying thing ever. Like, just create one app and port it to be able to use it on everything. It is so annoying.
I
But
did a customer install. He went with Reolink, and I was like,
yeah,
"Don't do it! Don't do it! Just get Ubiquity, get
hmm,
that entire ecosystem because you want the simplicity of essentially having one app." I know the UniFi Protect app is now separate, but
hmm,
that's what he was asking for. But of course, there's a huge barrier to entry with Ubiquity products because they're insanely expensive. And he went with Reolink, and overall, I'd say he's been happy with it. But every now and again, I'll get a text message from him, be like, "I should have got Ubiquity because of XYZ problem or whatever it is." And he's just
hmm,
his problem isn't with the cameras themselves; it's more with the NVR system, with the mass latency, even on the same network.
yeah. I don't think I've experienced the latency problems with the NVR. Surprisingly, the NVR has been solid, and takes me back to the other thing. It's like when you go with other products, you can get the cameras right, but then there's always like a catch with the software in terms of pricing. Like there might be a subscription like per year to use something like Blue Iris. There might be a subscription like per camera, like if you go with Synology's system. I don't believe there's anything like that with UniFi, right? Like if you just have their stuff, is it you can just plug in as many cameras as it can support?
As far as I
haven't looked.
know, it is.
Okay, yeah, I figured that. So, yeah, that's what I also liked about Reolink. As long as whatever your NVR can support, you can use as many cameras as you want.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not tracking any subscription fees because that was also another reason why I went with Ubiquity because I wanted to avoid subscription fees. and they rug
Hmm.
pulled us on the UniFi video that you could host on your own servers and stuff. Now I understand why they did that because they probably wanted tighter integration, and they were probably aiming for a very specific user experience, much like Apple would. Like Apple refuses to let you install Mac OS as best as they can on other
Yeah.
laptops or systems because their goal is to just give you the Apple experience, right?
You mean Unify Protect? Is that what you were referring to?
Well, so there used to be Unified Video, and you could host it like on a
Okay.
virtual machine or a container, and then it's transitioned to Unified Protect, and now you have
Okay.
to have
Okay.
a online account and all this nonsense. It's
Yeah.
kind of annoying.
Yeah, like you said, I can see why, and I also see like I can see both sides. Like when you hear about Apple and stuff, that's like, oh, they're so, you know, closed in their ecosystem. I can't sideload apps. I can't do any of this. I'm restricted on what I can do. At the end of the day, personally, I have never had a problem where I'm like, oh, gee, I sure wish I could install this app. I could sideload this on my phone. I know a lot of people like to do that. They're like, I bought this. I want to be able to do what I want with or what I want with it. But for some of my stuff, I really don't care. And my phone is one of those. And my protect or my surveillance system, I'm perfectly fine with having a tight knit kind of ecosystem, hardware to software communication in that respect. Like, it doesn't bother me. I can see why it bothers a lot of people, but
Yeah, I think
I
it's important too, like understanding the environment you're buying into, understanding the products and the lineup and stuff. But I think that the difference here was, it was kind of out of the blue when they were like, we're taking this a feature that everyone's using away and now forcing
mhm.
everyone onto this new feature, and that never feels good.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. Jonathan Talks Hardware asks, "What inspired you to do YouTube, Radal? I see you chimed in with money. That certainly that certainly was not the case. We actually talked
oh,
about this before in our little pre-stream meeting the other day about YouTube and stuff. But it's funny enough that I got into YouTube because I have always wanted to do photography, and it gave me an excuse to both buy a camera and do something with the giant pile of tech that I was amassing because I'm a huge nerd and just like tech stuff. So it wasn't to get famous. It wasn't to build a big channel. It wasn't to become the next Linus Tech Tips, the next Jeff Geerling. But it was because I liked cameras and I wanted to get into photography. And that's kind of how it started. What's your story, Stefano? How did you get into the YouTube game?
I was kind of well, at first I was just uploading gaming content because I was like, I want to try this out. I didn't want to be a YouTuber though. That kind of being in this space kind of is a turnoff for me, and people being like, "Oh, you're a YouTuber," and all of the stereotypes that go along with that just really pushed me away. But a long time ago, I was basically building gaming PCs pretty frequently before I got in home lab content, and a very good friend of mine was like, "Hey, you should just make videos about what you're doing and then post them online." And I was like, I don't know, I don't really want to do this anymore, and whatever. But anyway, I did it. I started making videos of like some things I was making, and then I started dabbling in the home lab world, and the home lab community is really where things escalated. And it turned out, well, hey, I actually kind of like documenting all the stuff I'm doing. And it was very vlog style in the early days. Like, hey, I'm buying this thing. We're gonna install on this server, whatever, whatever. And so I don't know. It was just kind of nice and different. Then the early days were very different than SPX Labs today. And hell, the channel wasn't even named SPX Labs back in the day. And like you said, I didn't get into this for the clout, right? I still don't want to be a big YouTube channel. I feel like I'm too big now currently. But you can go back through, my videos from 10 years ago and see that I've never once asked for a like and subscribe because I just don't, that's just not what I want for this channel. I don't want to be that kind of content curator. And also, honestly, you guys are gonna like and subscribe if you really like, some content anyway. So it's, to me anyway, it's pointless to ask, right? But yeah, that's pretty much why. I mean, I just like making videos.
Yeah, so go ahead and like and subscribe to all of SPX Labs content.
You'll
So
regret it. The algorithm will screw you so hard.
he can sit here and say he's never done that still, but I've done it for him. So
Yep.
technically, he still hasn't asked for one. I am in the camp of I have the same kind of outro at the end of every video. Thanks YouTube members, Patreons. If you like the video, like it. If you want to see more content, subscribe. Thanks. See you guys next time. I'm not in the camp of, hey, what's up? Today we're going to talk about some Omada stuff. Be sure to smash that like button and subscribe right now before even watching the video. Apparently it works, so maybe, I'll sell out and start doing that. But no, at this point, I just throw it at the end, and it is what it is.
Yeah, and I don't want to like cast shade on everyone else that does that. Like that's their prerogative. They're trying to grow their channels. They're trying to make this a full-time job. I have a full-time job. I don't plan on leaving my full-time job. This is still very much a hobby channel for me, and I do have I strive to release one video a week, every week. That sounded weird, and I've been doing that for a long time now. But if I miss a week, it's not too big of a deal. Like I don't care if I lose 1,000 subscribers because I missed one video that week. Like people come and go, and it's their nature. And my content's not for everyone. Like I'm not very interesting, not the funniest guy in the world, and that's okay. I'm still gonna make my videos whether people like them or not. And for those that like it, they'll be there. For those that don't, sorry to fill the web with my garbage.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the I feel like a lot of YouTubers kind of fall into that thing where I'm a YouTuber now, so the pressure's on to, if my schedule was put out one video per week, I got to follow that schedule, and it becomes, I think there's some merit to the cliche, like never let your hobby become your work, or because the day that you become a full-time YouTuber, I feel like that becomes your job, and it becomes more stressful. And I can't speak to that. That's an assumption. Jeff might be able to fill in and lend some credibility to that. But yeah, I just like you, I have a full-time job. I have a full-time job, and this is still my hobby. So Cody, thank you so much for joining, man. We got an all-star crew up in here. We got Rich, Jeff, Cody. Man, we got a crew.
Yeah. I don't even. These guys should be in here. I should be in the comment section right now.
Yeah. How many people can I fit in this stream?
You need to get Cody on this stream.
I reached out. Yeah, he told me I reached out to him a couple weeks ago. Told him, if you want to jump on, we'll do it. He said he's good to go. I told him we'll have to wait a bit because I have a baby, and this was weeks ago. So I was like, it'll be quite a few weeks before we can figure it out. But yeah, that's in the works. Norb says, I have to say thank you. I have 5 Zima boards on the way to create a low power Proxmox HA server. Man, look at me influencing I hate that word, influencer.
Well, you are an influencer. I'm sorry.
I guess this is the proof. But no, that's awesome. I think they're awesome little boards. I mean, in terms of low power and aesthetics and form factor, I think they're fantastic. Mine's sitting right there. I think you can see it. Yeah, right here. Mine's still chugging along, sipping 10 watts for 3 devices. It's pretty freaking awesome. But yeah, I do have a full upgraded Proxmox HA system in the works. So subscribe, like, and stick around if you want to see that video.
Nice.
That's gonna be my joke for the rest of the stream. Asking people to like and subscribe after every comment.
They should like and subscribe to your channel. It's really good. Your content's great.
Yeah,
Lighting's great. Video's great. Your interaction with the camera's great. I love it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, go and I didn't pay him to say any of that. I promise. None of that was a paid sponsorship, or he wasn't supposed to disclose that.
You said I wasn't supposed to disclose that.
Yeah, I messed up there. Damn, I broke the NDA. Um, yeah, if your hobby becomes your job, you never have to work a day in your life. Uh, maybe some days I feel like that would be one of those things when you start doing it. It's like, yeah, this is great. Now I can do this full time. But I think while it is probably still fun, it becomes that thing like you were saying. Like if you miss a week, who cares? Like it doesn't matter. But when it's your job and you have to keep feeding the YouTube algorithm and figuring out what the YouTube algorithm likes, then it becomes a bit more stressful. But no, there is some merit to that.
And it's funny too. So like, if you're like a full-time YouTuber, man, you miss your schedule a little bit, it has significant impact on your income.
Yeah. Jeff says he's trying a video that's a completely different style tomorrow. When your channel grows, you feel less willing to try new things on a whim. My channel is a fraction of the size of yours, and I feel that. The first time I was getting like consistently better views on my videos, I was like, oh, this is great. This is fantastic. This is what my videos get now. Like, great. And then I made like a video that I thought was fun for me, and then I put it out and it just like completely tanked. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the YouTube algorithm you gotta play. That was my first like experience with it.
Videos.
It's depressing. Like I think you become more accustomed to it, but putting out a video that you spent a lot of time on, you thought was interesting, and see it get that 10 out of 10 in YouTube Studio just is soul crushing. I don't care what anybody says. That one's always tough to see.
It's and also on the like flip side too. Like, so I recently made a video where it's not really a guide, but it's kind of a guide where I set up like the Omada controller again. Man, I was dreading doing that video, and I tried putting it off for so long, but finally push came to shove and I had to do it. Did not have a good time doing it, and I could not imagine being like a full-time YouTuber where you're forced to make content for other brands or products, whatever it may be, because you have a team of people who rely on you, or you have to put food on the table for you and your family, or pay for insurance for yourselves. It's like, gosh, that would be so hard. I don't want to say miserable, but that's how I view it, as miserable.
I've had a couple of those where a brand has reached out and they're like, hey, you want to do a video on our product? I'm like, yeah, sure. And they send it to me, and like right when it gets here and I start messing with it, I'm like, I really don't want to do a video on this. And a couple of times I've been like, well, technically I didn't sign a contract, so if I just didn't do a video, all I'm doing is just ensuring that I never get a product from this company again. Yeah. So is it worth it? I've never actually done that yet, but I've been close a couple of times.
That's why I try really hard also to not do reviews. I walk that line very, very tightly, where my content definitely comes off as a review, because I mean, how do you get a product and not, try to inform your audience about it, right? But in my opinion, a review is very detailed. You're hitting lots of the talking points they want you to talk about, as well as like more specifications. And when I do a review, I guess it's more of like the highlights or the things I think that are most interesting. And I also generally don't give my opinion about the product unless I'm genuinely impressed, or genuinely upset with it. And the couple of reviews I've done, I mean, I've been like super jaded about it. There's this one UPS battery I just ripped to pieces. I couldn't even finish doing the video because I was so frustrated with the design and build quality of it. And people are like, "You're a reviewer. You're supposed to follow through regardless of how you feel." And I was like, "Well, I'm
Yeah.
not really a reviewer, but okay."
Yeah. That was the
I see your
last,
point.
Terramaster that I just put the video out on the other day. Like, halfway through it, I'm like, oh my God, this is not going to go well. And I'm so sick of dealing with this terrible software. But I was like, oh, I've gone this far, so I guess I'll just put out the video. But yeah, there's a couple of them that I've just been like, man, I really don't want to do a review on this product, but it is what it is. Speaking of YouTubes and jobs, and now recently you can't get through any type of tech conversation without talking about AI, or as I like to call it, artificial intelligence, because I'm so smart. Have
You had
you
me there in the first half.
have you personally? So I guess before we jump into this, do you want to tell everyone what it is you do as your full time job? I know you work in IT, and you can talk a little bit about that. You know exactly where you work, the address, your shift, and your social security number. If you want to just throw that out there real quick.
Do you need my date of birth as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this for a job? Because I'm confused by why I need to give you this information.
No, it's for AI.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, yeah, I'm a Red Hat system administrator by day, and that's literally what I do. I play with Red Hat every single day, and it's fantastic. No Windows in my
Hell
life.
yeah. Hell yeah. So that brings me to the question integrating AI. Have you personally, in your position, seen anyone, or you personally have used AI in anywhere in your workplace, or have seen any opportunity personally to use AI integrations?
So some of our developers, at least a team of developers that I work directly with, they develop on Linux. We have an AI team, and they have been playing around with, Chat GPT, of course, like everyone else. And according to them, it's been pretty helpful in some aspects of getting their jobs done because they can pretty much use it to bounce more technical ideas off of and receive technical feedback and not have, I guess, certain code or ideas, whatever they're coming up with, be lost in translation when talking to other people. And they say it works really well for them. And, it's been beneficial, but most of the time, they have to, if any code that they get, they have to look at with scrutiny so that way they're not getting bad code. And me personally, just last Thursday or Friday was the first time I finally signed up for Chat GPT to play with it because I didn't want to give them my real phone number. I was like, this is crazy. It's like a VoIP should totally work. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, they don't want you to give a VoIP number because those can be easily spoofed, right? Or whatever, mass created.
Yeah.
So I finally broke down. I gave them my real phone number and I was playing with it. And for me, it was kind of awkward, I guess, because I haven't really learned to use it yet. Um, but like it's actually it's like, to me, it's more like a smart search engine, ChatGPT is, which is
Yeah.
cool because now if I Google something, you have to filter through 5 or 6 pages of information to find the exact thing and the exact context that you're looking for. Whereas ChatGPT will give you, several options, and you can kind of go through the options and be like, "Hey, tell me more about option 6." And it'll be like, "Yeah, so option 6, you have these considerations." It's just like a more filtered or advanced search engine for me currently. And
Yeah.
I like it a lot because it's less that I have to filter through. But honestly, I've used it like 4 times. So my
Yeah.
experience with it is about waist deep.
Yeah. I've still haven't hopped on the Chat GPT train yet. I I just don't have a good idea of what to do with it that hasn't really already been done.
Yeah.
Because that's like the hottest topic right now, right? Like, you can't go on any tech site or do anything without seeing something about AI. Shout out Jeff Geerling, dropped another fat donation. AI told me to send this super chat. Look at that, dude. AI benefiting everybody's life, dude.
Now you're all in, baby.
Yep. Now I have to use that to pay for the ChatGPT super account or whatever they call it.
Plus, I think, like
Is
everything
it?
else. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't gotten into it because like I said, I've seen so many things, and I can't really think of anything that I would use it for that hasn't really already been done. And I've seen people do some really cool integrations with it. I saw it was pretty impressive that a guy straight up but used ChatGPT to essentially create a relational database. Like, he inputted the information and said, store this in a table and then store this in another table. And then he was essentially able to query the table he just created by giving ChatGPT the data using SQL, like just commands, standard SQL queries. And I was like, that is some crazy, crazy shit.
Yeah, I hear
There.
stories like that a lot, but then
Yeah.
like if you ask ChatGPT to stop repeating that it's an AI language learning model or whatever it says, it
Hmm.
literally cannot, and that's probably because of its programming. But then in the same chat, like that same, yeah, your same conversation, you can ask it, how many times have you used this phrase? And it would be like, oh, I can't perform those calculations. I can only estimate it. And you're like, okay, well, tell me what your estimation is, and it'll, spit out some number. In my case, when I was playing around with it, it was like, oh, I said it 10 times. I'm like,
Hmm.
no, I'm pretty sure you've said it closer to 18 times. And it's like, well, sorry, I can't do that math. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, do you have access to our chat history? And it was like, no, it's limited or whatever it
Yeah.
said. So it's really weird. Like, I hear like, oh, I started a business, or no, ChatGPT started a business for me. But then ChatGPT claims it has no access to the internet and is relying on a database built in December of 2021. So it's
Hmm.
like there's lots of, I don't want to say misinformation, but there seems to be like a lot of story that we're not getting to fill in these gaps of like how people are actually utilizing ChatGPT.
Yeah. And for every like one or two really cool integrations you see with it, you see 100 instances where it just says the dumbest shit ever. So, yeah, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I do see some really cool use cases, especially for those in IT. If you're looking to, especially it depends on how you use it, but people who are just
Yeah.
learning to get into coding, it is really useful for getting you started and getting you set up with some, you know, beginner level code. And I've seen people develop some or have it create some really intricate stuff, almost a full website, just by giving it parameters and kind of training it as they go. But just having it create like simple scripts in various languages, and because you can know how to code, but you're not going to remember every single syntax or every library that's used in every different you know programming language. So if I'm like, I got to use Python, I never use Python at work for anything. I'm like, shit, dude, I got to do this in Python. Write me a script that does this in Python, and it can spit out just something instantly. And that's not really something you can Google, right? You can Google like kind of how to do this and search through and get
It takes
ideas.
a
But
lot longer. Yeah.
yeah, this is like very targeted, very specific. And whether or not you think that's a good thing, I mean, if you're using it as like a learning tool and a way to maybe obviously save time, yeah, it's extremely useful. If you're using it, like you see a lot of, students are now using ChatGPT to essentially do their entire coursework. That's going to be a problem. And when you get to the point to where you're relying on AI or specifically ChatGPT to do actual work rather than you're using it as a tool, then I think that's when it becomes kind of a problem. But
Yeah, I tested it out with some bash scripts just to see how capable it was,
yeah,
and it's pretty good at creating scripts. And like I said, it honestly feels like a like hyper specialized search engine that also can give you very valid information when you ask it to like, hey, help me create a script with these parameters. It's pretty good.
yeah,
I don't know if I trust it day to day necessarily, but it's
yeah,
been the few times I've used it, I was like, wow, this is actually very helpful, especially
yeah.
if you know what to look for and what you're doing.
Yeah, Matt Roberts says my company is heavily into AI, mainly GPU,
As a
AAS.
service,
I guess that would make I I don't know, maybe.
application as service, I don't know.
Yeah, something I obviously have not much familiarity with, but also helping places use it for research. And yeah, I remember the first kind of introduction I had to AI was um, the self-driving car stuff. You heard Tesla doing their self-driving stuff using AI, and Nvidia developing some really specialized hardware for developing AI, programs. That's kind of the first time I ever heard about AI being used, and this was years ago, before it came to the consumer level. So I know companies have been using it for a while now, and using it for really hyper specific purposes, especially research. But I think you're now seeing it catered to the masses with ChatGPT, just something that the everyday person can use. And it's almost like people think AI is just like they just created it. Like this is brand new, but it's something that's been around for a long, long time.
I think ChatGPT would probably be cool to help you. Like, let's say you want to change careers or something. It'd probably
Hmm.
be a great resource to help you learn about new topics and get you going on a new career path and help you develop your skills as well.
Yeah, that's where I was getting at. Like, if you want to sit down and use it for learning, it is extremely powerful. Like, I've always found the best. I mean, my day job is as a developer, and I've always said if you want to get into developing, the best way is to just do it. You can take all the Code Academy courses you want. You can scour YouTube for tutorials. You can read books, and those are helpful to an extent. But getting out there and actually developing is by far the best way. You're going to suck at it. It's going to be difficult. You're not going to understand things. You're going to break shit. But that's the way you learn. And whether or not you're willing to use AI as a learning tool for that is completely up to you, because you can use it to just generate code for you, copy paste, boom, just like a Stack Overflow, or you can use it as a learning tool. And I think it's really powerful as a learning tool. Rich says it's still early for LLMs, but I do think it's going to change the world, especially in skilled technology jobs. I think, and when you say LLMs, it makes me just immediately go to like translation apps, because that sounds like an extremely powerful way that AI can be integrated. Because right now we have some pretty sophisticated translation apps that work pretty well, but I don't think we're at the point now to where we have real time translation, and especially with those nuances in different languages, different dialects, slang terms. I think a lot of that gets lost in translation, because I've seen quite a few YouTube videos just like we translated this recipe 100 times in different languages, and translated it back to English, and now we performed it and it just comes out like a garbled mess. If AI can get to the point to where it can become this like translation guru, that would be absolutely insane. And I don't think I've seen too much on that yet, honestly, but that's just where that brought me to.
A kind of fun thing that I did with ChatGPT during my like very short time using it. It doesn't sound very short now because I feel like I have all these things. But I prompted it with just like hello, and it was like, hey, how can I assist you? I'm an AI language learning model, and I just copied and pasted everything it said back to itself, and it was having this conversation about how great AI was and how beneficial it is, and it was like agreeing with itself about everything. And after
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe like 30 or 40 copy impastas, it finally felt like it understood what was happening and started getting shorter and shorter with itself. And then eventually it just like straight up kicked me out of chat. It was like, nope, I'm done here. It was very bizarre. I couldn't refresh to reconnect to it or anything. I was like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah, it's got some ways to go, that's for sure. But I mean, for it being so new to the consumer world, it's taken the tech market by storm. So I'm excited to see where we're sitting at with AI in the next couple of years and what it can do. Where are my Omada boys at? We got quite a few. Omada's getting pretty popular, as we discussed earlier a bit in the stream. Night owls. Why we got so many night people? I feel like we got so many night people in the stream. Raid owl, what do you do? How do you keep your office so clean? You don't see that part of the office, or that part of the office, or this part of the office. Camera placement is key when keeping your office clean. Storage, I don't know. Go buy. I have a shelf with a crap ton of like storage. Label maker. Buy a label maker. Let's see. When I saw another chat, I wanted to. Okay, yeah. Brian says, I found that it's great when you have an idea and don't know how to start. It doesn't give the right answers most of the time, but it definitely gives you a good starting point, and that's. I agree. When you think of something, you're like, I don't even know what to Google to get to where I want to go with this. I think AI is or ChatGPT specifically is good for that.
Yeah, it does give you additional information too, like when it's trying to guess at what you're getting at. So like even asking something simple like, hey, what's a good Wi-Fi channel to set up? It'll even mention like, channel width and things like that. So
Yeah.
just give you more ideas to help you narrow it down, it is actually pretty cool.
Yeah. No, it's definitely useful. I think it's like I said, in a couple of years, it's going to be something. I think this is going to be sticking around. I don't anticipate this being the NFT fad that we saw come and go. Hopefully, stay away. At
I'm
this
sorry, the
point.
what? I've never heard of that.
NFT, just sign up. Head over to raidowlnft.com and you can get a personalized, non-fungible token of myself.
I didn't know you had
And
picture of your
those,
feet on there.
yeah, no,
Dang.
various different body parts
Oh, I'm
as
all in
NFTs.
now, baby.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I hope that fad is dead. That was an obnoxious point of time to see Twitter completely flooded with NFTs and whatnot. So I hope that's dead and gone. So we'll see. Jason in the chat. Welcome, Jason. Thank you for stopping by. AI is such a buzzword for a lot of companies lately. What are some silly ways y'all have seen services integrate AI? Some silly ways I've seen AI integrated. I'm trying to think. I will put that on hold and try to remember something. It does remind me of one integration of AI that I thought was really cool. Was I saw some guy who developed a bot that essentially scrapes the most recent like news stories for a specific topic. Then it uses AI to read and interpret the article and then push out a summary of that article. And then he piped that into some other library that takes that script, pulls relevant pictures for it and generates the speech to text for that and completely packages that and exports it as a video. And I was like, oh my God, you literally just created a YouTube channel from AI that doesn't, you don't have to have any interaction with. Like it does everything completely automatically, which I thought was extremely cool. But the silliest things I've seen are the deep fake stuff. And I guess some of it's AI, but the most recent ones are like someone posted a song that was created by Jay-Z. It sounded exactly like Jay-Z, but it was completely generated using an AI trained model of his voice. And that was silly and awesome at the same time, which makes you kind of wonder how, if you're a musical artist, what happens when this becomes like super popular and people can just generate music or anything using your voice. That gets freaking spooky.
That is very spooky. Not really this like an answer to the question, but kind of in the same vein of like silliness. I don't know if anyone has an iPhone in this chat, but if you search in the Apple Store for Chat GPT, I can't show you this on show you this, but you get all of these totally sketchy ripoffs of apps that claim to use Chat GPT. I don't know how this is legal or how or why Apple allows this, but they like the logos are even super similar to OpenAI, like color schemes and everything. It's super sketchy. And it's kind of silly to me that people seem to be downloading these apps and using them because, that it doesn't seem like a real Chat GPT integration to me.
Well, ChatGPT has like an API you can use, right? So essentially,
Yeah,
you can just create an app that essentially just points to the ChatGPT API and kind of call it your own ChatGPT, I guess.
but can you trust? Can you trust the
Oh,
chat?
I I have no idea. I've never even used ChatGPT yet, so I can't even speak on if I trust that yet. So,
Yeah, that's true.
Rich, thank you so much for the $5 dono. What wallet do I need for my Raid Owl NFT? Yeah, it's on the Ethereum blockchain.
Ethereum too?
Use yeah. We have a fork of that called Raid Owl token.
Nice.
Just buy into that. We're dropping some mad drops this weekend for all of our holders. Make sure you're in. It's gonna be big.
How many coins are you gonna burn this weekend?
3. Exactly 3. What jobs will be lost first due to AI in the next 5 years? It seems like a lot of people. I've seen the heavy backlash already in AI generated art has gotten extremely popular and has faced huge backlash from the artistic community because I can see it from both sides that if I'm just a regular Joe and I want a piece of art commissioned that's me riding a tiger with holding a sword into a castle, would I rather just type that prompt into AI and pay AI some fee, like $5 or a subscription or something super cheap? Or do I go and get it commissioned by somebody and wait weeks or a month and pay them a lot more money? From a consumer's standpoint, it makes perfect sense to choose AI. But from an artist's perspective, that's your livelihood, and to see something come in and completely just like that, be able to replicate it, and in some cases do it better. It's I feel for them. So I don't know. I'd be pressed to say, you know, not I can't say like art, but people who do that as a living commission art pieces. I think that's on its way out, and even Adobe has integrated. What does Adobe call their Adobe AI art?
Dreamweaver.
Firefly, not quite Dreamweaver.
Oh wait,
They might
sorry.
they could integrate it in Dreamweaver.
I'm not familiar
So
with Adobe products. PDF.
they so they have Firefly. I guess it's in beta right now, but I guess I wonder if I have access to it because I pay for the Adobe Suite. I don't know if it's in that yet. I guess I should check, but
So
yeah,
you're down with subscription fees, I'm hearing?
I am not, but I am involved in one.
Does it happen to be Final Cut Pro on the iPad?
Not yet. Well, we'll get to that in a second. That actually is one of our topics, and I do have some thoughts on that, and Adobe as well. But yeah, so like this is like their AI. It's a full like program. Like you can see it. It even works on like videos. If you have a video, obviously this is a very specifically tuned demo of it. But just imagine being able to say, "Oh, change this scene to winter," of some footage that you shit outside that you shot outside, and have it be able to do that, and just any other AI generated art, and be able to just do it on a whim is pretty crazy. So
That is awesome. I'm kind of looking forward to some self-hosted containers that call into those APIs, so that way I can play around with that. I think maybe Jeff from Craft Computing has already done a video about that,
yeah,
which I haven't watched. But I wanna flex some of these GPUs that I have just chilling on the wall above me that you can't see. I sit around
yeah,
doing nothing just for fun.
yeah. I have some space in my server that would be a good idea. Hell, AI is getting super popular. Throw some GPUs, spin up an AI service training model or something. Utilize that. That does sound like a good idea.
You still have room in
But
that Silverstone case for some graphics cards, right?
yeah, there's a lot of room in there. Well,
Yeah.
actually, there's a 4090 in there, so I don't know how much space I technically have left. But my main server, I got quite a few slots I can utilize. Um, but yeah, Adobe, they make some good products, they make some bad products, and everyone knows they're famous for their subscription model, which is quite annoying and terrible. But when I started my YouTube channel, I did everything in Premiere. I learned in Premiere. I'm still subscribed to the Adobe Suite simply because I can't leave Photoshop and I can't leave Lightroom for all my photography
Or is it really
stuff.
because you're afraid to get sued by Adobe for using their legacy software?
A little of both. I know Adobe wants to come drop the hammer on a guy who's paying $30 a month for their stuff, but hopefully I stay out of their way. But yeah, it's annoying. That brings me to other products, specifically Apple. Apple, the two other players in the video editing realm are Blackmagic with DaVinci Resolve and Apple with Final Cut Pro. And both of those are unlike Premiere in that they are one-time fees. I believe, I know DaVinci is free for their basic version, which is basic, but you can do a lot with just their basic version. Final Cut, I believe, is $299 lifetime for the software. And I think Final Cut is also $300 if you want their studio version. And a big thing which ties into the Apple ecosystem, I did a video on this a long time ago, but the iPad being this Pro model, they throw the M1 chip in there, and it still is just an iPad at the end of the day. Like, yeah, it's powerful, but you're getting to the point to where the hardware is so much higher tier than the software it can run. And a lot of people are saying, give us actual pro apps, especially Final Cut Pro, and they've finally done that. They announced the other day that it would be coming to the iPad. Let me look up the article.
Which is very cool that that's coming to iPad since they share the same hardware. But
Do you wanna say what the big but is in terms of what the problem is with it on the iPad?
I'll let you handle this, big butt.
So, like I said, the Final Cut on desktop is $299 for the software. However, if you want it on the iPad, it is, as we can read here, get 1 month free, then pay $5 per month or $50 annually.
How generous for $1 trillion company. 1 month.
Like, I just, I don't understand it. And so DaVinci also released Resolve for the iPad recently. And I think it's $100, just a one-time fee, if I remember correctly. Because I think their base model, you can try it. How do I? Yeah, $95. So at least DaVinci is still doing the, you buy it, you're good. I wasn't a big fan of using Resolve on the iPad. I use Resolve now as my main editor. It's cool, but it's not exactly a desktop port, and I applaud them for taking their software and tailoring it specifically to the iPad with touch controls, simplified UI, and whatnot. But I've learned how to do everything in the desktop app, and I'm familiar with it. If I pull out my iPad, I want that same familiarity when continuing my workflow. I don't want to have to learn an entire another, essentially, workflow for doing it on the iPad. I can see a lot of people using it if you want to take the time to learn it, because in my initial tests, it runs fantastic on the M1 iPad. But yeah, Apple coming out and dropping this, I think people were like, yeah, great. And then when they said it was a subscription, people just immediately were like, don't you see the backlash Adobe's getting for continuing to be the only player in the game that's doing subscription based?
But it's working for them. Like tons and tons of schools force their students to use Adobe or be a part of the Adobe suite, right? And that's like $20 a month for students. And I mean, it's working. Yeah. I mean, they're making, hand over fist money on that. Now, I have a little bit of stake with this announcement from Final Cut Pro because I actually use Final Cut Pro on Mac. And if they're moving to a subscription model there, how long until they do the same thing for the for Mac OS?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I've seen, but you say, yeah, the subscription model works for Adobe, and it does. They're an extremely profitable company. But in the last year, I've seen so many people switch away from Premiere, including myself. A lot of, on my personal YouTube, I follow a lot of various different YouTube channels, a lot of like nerdy camera stuff, and a lot of camera reviewers and stuff. And a lot of them that have used Premiere are switching. And all of them have said, if I'm paying $50 a month for the suite, that's $600 a year for a product that is not worth that money compared to Final Cut and compared to DaVinci. And I agreed. So I've switched. I'm full DaVinci Resolve now. Unfortunately, I'm still stuck in the Photoshop and Lightroom uh, softwares. So until someone comes along and develops something that can compete with those, don't tell me to use GIMP for a Photoshop alternative. I've tried it. No,
It's
I,
overly
I,
complex for no reason.
yeah, I've tried that, and if you use it, cool. Whoever out there is using GIMP and are happy with it, awesome. I didn't like it, so
GIMP,
yeah.
the thing I hate most about GIMP is you like, I guess I'm just so used to clicking on, let's say, like an image and then resizing it with a little
Hmm.
like drag ability. And then you can do that by like with, you have to like click on something to resize it. But then if you don't click on the right layer, it does the background or the base canvas instead. And you're like, but I'm selecting the image that I want to resize. And I mean, I don't use GIMP very often, but the few times I have it, that has been the absolute most frustrating thing about it was it's not very intuitive.
Yeah.
I do not like GIMP.
Yeah,
Right,
I
that's
mean,
crazy.
I don't want to. I, I I used it mainly in my trying Linux for a week video, and I made it a point in that video. I don't want to like sit here and shit all over. It's a free software. People have put a lot of effort and time into developing, maintaining a software that they have chosen to make free for everybody to use. So I applaud that. But when you're so used to using Photoshop, and I think that's one of the things that Adobe has done really well, software wise. Photoshop, I think I love using Photoshop. When I come from using that to GIMP, I could probably learn how to do things in GIMP, but
The
it's
learning
so
curve's too
hard.
high.
Yeah, the learning curve is high, and it's hard to compete with a multi-billion-dollar company when it comes to, especially when they've been developing this software for decades. So it's hard to compete, especially when I'm just used to using that software. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say it's bad. It's definitely
It's
a
definitely
powerful
not bad.
software.
It is
Yeah, no,
definitely
it's
not bad
not.
software.
I had a bad experience with it just because of that was my personal experience. I don't think it's bad software. It's hard to compete when it comes to Adobe.
Yeah, but let's be
Um,
real. It's no MS Paint, the most
it's
superior
not
Photoshop
that. I mean, that's where I
software.
learned my first computer art skills.
Didn't we
I,
all?
d- Creating various shapes on the screen and filling them in with random colors and holding Control I to invert it and watching it strobe. Man, I was a straight artiste back in my middle school days. Um, Cody says Da Vinci for the win, but I mean, I just make cuts, not really editing. And you can do it for free if you're using DaVinci Resolve, the standard version. But you got to get into, man, I like DaVinci Resolve because everyone said, it's fantastic for, um, for color correction and doing color work. And I'm a freaking like camera nerd. I just love messing with cameras and the photography aspect, the video aspect, the editing, color corrections, all that type of stuff. It's just really fun for me. So going from Premiere to Resolve's way of like doing color corrections and fine tuning things is it's so much more fun to do it in Resolve. So that was another thing that brought me over there. But yeah, in terms of you're just cutting and doing stuff, Resolve free, you can't beat it.
Yeah, and you can do the same with iMovie as well. If you're just doing simple cuts, it's free for everyone. It's super simple to use. It's intuitive. The advantage with the Resolve though is it works on Linux as well. So if you
Hmm.
refuse to be on Windows like you should be doing, you can use it
That's
on Linux, so you don't have to worry about buying into Mac OS either.
that is another one. Depending on which one you go with, Premiere, Resolve, or Final Cut. Final Cut obviously only works on Mac systems. Premiere works on Mac and Windows, and Resolve works on Mac, Windows, and Linux, which was a big reason again why I went to Resolve and not try to get involved in the Final Cut um, software. I've tried it. I bought it. I thought I feel like Resolve is a good middle ground between Final Cut and Premiere. Final Cut I just couldn't get into. I know a lot of people use it and love it, but I
Resolve,
couldn't
you
do
have
it.
to pay for CUDA support, right? Is that true?
On Linux, maybe. I can't. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was talking about this recently with someone and they may have mentioned it, but even if you have to pay for CUDA acceleration, it could be worthwhile, especially since it's a one-time fee. So honestly, I don't really think it's that bad.
Okay, Jason says, yeah, free
Oh,
version is
nice.
limited to CPU rendering. So if you want to use hardware or GPU acceleration,
Hey, Brett, I know
CUDA,
this is your live stream, but am I allowed to give shout outs to other YouTube channels?
absolutely.
Okay, so everyone needs to go to Jason's lab because he's a huge Ubiquity fanboy. I mean, absolutely in his Discord, just can't stop talking about Ubiquity. And he really loves it. So if you
I
love Ubiquity, get over there and get subscribed.
I know
He's your
you're
boy.
trolling right now. I
Me troll? No, I would never.
I
I am not a troll.
I
That's
know
not how I
for
roll.
I know for a fact that is not true.
That would be a form of cyberbullying, sir. And I do not condone cyberbullying.
Yeah, absolutely not. We don't do that around here.
I love you, Jason.
Oh shit! Yeah, go check out Jason's channel. Um, so let's you,
So, it's an ongoing joke between us. I couldn't miss this opportunity.
hell yeah. They so that brings me to another thing you said. Said no one should be on Windows. So
You love ads, right? Those Windows ads.
I love being targeted with ads. I wake up in the morning not knowing what I should buy. So having someone always there telling me what I should buy, it's just another load off, in my mind.
Yeah, well, listen,
I don't have to decide what I want.
see,
Microsoft knows.
this is the problem. Microsoft doesn't know because if they targeted you with Ubiquity ads, you would actually probably love the new ad integration.
From Ubiquity, they're doing ad
Yeah.
integration.
Well, if they did. They
Oh,
don't, but
okay.
they should.
Yeah, I
And
just need more
maybe
ads,
you
dude.
feel differently about it.
So you know how people like they download Pi-hole, they download web browser-based ad blockers. I do it the opposite. I download things to give me more ads. I just need more.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
It's
actually
like
smarter though, so that way you get ads that are actually more targeted to you in
yeah,
your interest versus, them just throwing ads against the wall, right?
yeah. So like so there's all those blocked ads that people block all their ads. Those blocked ads have to go somewhere. You know where they go?
To your house.
To me. To
Yeah.
me. I take them all. I love it.
And that's what happens
Um,
when you sign up for Google DNS, right? All those blocked ads get pushed directly to you.
Yeah, I check that box. Give me the ads. So, okay, if we're not running Windows and you're just, you hate Apple, they're out to just conquer the world, you don't like their walled ecosystem, you got to run Linux. So, Linux as a daily driver, what do you think about that?
Well, it depends. So admittedly, I do have a dedicated PC for gaming. Because right now I still think that Linux, like the Pop OSs of the world, Ubuntu's of the world, just quite aren't there yet for me to fully switch over. And there are tons of games that just don't work on Linux altogether, which is a real bummer. But thankfully, we have Valve, who's working to progress, their Proton plugin or whatever that is, to help change that envelope. And man, if they do, I'm gonna be all about it. But so I still run Windows for that. But now, from a professional standpoint, I don't see why anyone would use Windows professionally. Linux. All right, so I use Red Hat, which is far behind as a lot of like the modern updates and plugins and software, whatever. So it's not always up to date with the latest GCC and all that jazz. But it's so freaking stable. And well, I use it mostly command line, so I guess I don't know what the GUI software is like, but it works well. And honestly, Microsoft still makes products and puts them or makes them available on Linux. Like we still have Teams. Actually, I think they just took Teams away. Yeah, I think they just took Teams away. But we still get a lot of Microsoft products. Like if you're a developer, VS Code, you can do
Hmm.
that on Linux, and people die by VS Code or are
I
willing to
love
die
VS
on that hill
Code.
for that.
I love VS Code. It's great.
That's what I hear. I hear from the developers that I work with, they love it. They talk,
Yeah.
they say have nothing but great things to say about it. And
Yeah.
so there are still like a lot of there's a lot of other products that you can get on there, but I don't know. It's come a long way. Like Gnome's come a long way, and yeah, it's not pretty, I guess, but I'm there to work. I'm not there to ooh and all at my taskbar or the fancy way the windows open up. I don't care about that stuff. Like I just want to do work. So from a work standpoint, I I just don't understand the appeal for using Windows at work. Now, from an infrastructure standpoint, being in part of a domain and having that control that Windows or Microsoft allows you to have through the domain controller and the GPOs and all that jazz, like that stuff is pretty wicked powerful. And a good domain admin can really make a company run really well and have everyone standardized. But I'd rather be on Linux. Like
Yeah.
just give me Linux. It's so much better.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like you said, it very, very much depends
It does.
on
It really does
your
at the end of the day.
situation. If it's so hard because the people want to really make this a black and white scenario, like Linux desktop is here. Like, look, everyone can use Linux as a desktop now. If you're using Windows, you're an idiot. It's like, no, it's not quite there yet. I don't think it's even close to being there yet. But it has gotten to a point to where if you are in this, if you're in the area where you want a a decent desktop experience, and Linux has come so far in terms of supporting more consumer apps, like I was saying, or like you mentioned, Proton, especially for gaming. That's huge. The compatibility layer that Steam slaps on top of Linux to be able to run games that weren't designed to run on there. DaVinci supporting Linux. The, unfortunately, Adobe doesn't support anything on Linux. So like you said, it depends. If I'm someone who is heavily involved in the Adobe ecosystem, if I run Premiere, I run Photoshop, that is my main workflow, I'm not running Linux. No matter how awesome you tell me it is,
Yeah.
I'm not running it. But
And
if
plus, like,
I'm,
go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but if I'm a developer who develops web apps and develop stuff in Python or creates APIs with Node.js or whatever, yeah, Linux is a fantastic experience. You can develop all that, run Docker, package it up all in one. You can use VS Code, and everyone's happy. So
And as a company, if you're running a company, who are you going to support? Windows, Mac OS, or I don't know, the 10 million distributions of Linux that exist? Like,
yeah,
no, man. And then a company will pick one distribution. Let's say it's Debian based. They choose to go Debian, right?
yeah,
Okay. Well, now you're gonna have, oh well, Ubuntu. It doesn't work on Ubuntu, even though that's Debian based. But and then you're gonna have those people cry about it, and you're gonna have other people cry about it in the Linux community. And so it's like, as a company, it's hard to support multiple distributions. And yes, they can recompile your software on their kernel or whatever, but that doesn't mean it's going to work out of the box or give those people the user experience that you want them to have. So at the end of the day, it's much easier to just be like, well, Mac OS and Windows is highly popular in the desktop world. It just makes sense to support that because the users are already trained for years now on Windows, and you don't have to worry about what distribution of Linux they might be using.
yeah. And I think Windows is that middle ground between, you have Linux being the workforce operating system, you have Mac OS being kind of consumer forward operating system, then I think Windows is in between, where it's both what people grow up using on their in their daily lives as the consumer sided operating system. Then, of course, they have the corporate side with Windows Server and running an entire company and everything off of Windows. So I think that's why obviously it's still the most popular, because at my work, we're a pretty large company. There's 0% chance we're switching to, people running Linux. Everyone runs Windows, and the app, since everyone runs Windows, we do a lot of work developing Windows apps in .NET, and that's just not something you're going to do in Linux. Yeah. So it brings you back to that ecosystem, right? It's not as like walled off as like Apple or anything, but when you're so comfortable with something and everyone else is comfortable with it, you have to have a pretty major reason to change. And again, I'll take it back to the Adobe thing, is they have managed to somehow mess that up, because they have quite the walled off ecosystem. You pay for a subscription, you use only their apps, and in certain cases there's not much competition, and people are still leaving Adobe to go use something else. So I think they've messed up royally there. But in terms of one last,
so sorry, just to go back a little bit,
yeah.
like, and Windows finally added the subsystem, or the Linux subsystem, right? And so now you don't need another third-party tool to integrate with Linux. You can just SSH straight into whatever operating system and interact with it, share your SSH keys, whatever. Like, that's such a huge leap. The whole reason why I even went to Mac in the first place is because I wanted an operating system that had driver support and hardware support from a parent company, a billion-dollar company, and that was going to deliver me a great, hardware experience and operating experience. I didn't have to worry about fighting with driver issues. And I was also sick and tired of having to install third-party apps every single time I wanted to do anything with all my Linux servers at home. So I was like, I'll just go Mac OS.
That's the big one. And I think that's the one that triggers a lot of the Linux community that I've noticed in my Linux videos, especially the one where I daily drove it for a week. It's hardware support and random software support can be such a pain in the ass. And if you aren't super familiar with the intricacies of getting those problems resolved in Linux, it is going to be a nightmare just to get some basic tasks done. And if you're doing this on Mac or Windows, where, like I said, there's billion-dollar companies, they've been around, Linux has obviously been around a long time too, but in terms of a standard operating system, it's been around for decades, and developers have created their apps and tailored their hardware and drivers specifically for these operating systems. So you can just rest assured that if you want to run a piece of software or you want to plug in a piece of hardware, it's going to work on Mac or Windows. You don't have that luxury in Linux. And I think that's the major thing, because everyone's workflow and everyone's use case is so different. Like, I might have that random one piece of software that I really count on for my workflow, and everything else can be working well. But if it's a huge pain in the ass to get that installed, or if it's not even possible in Linux, then I can't use it. And that's just how it is.
And you also have the scare of, oh, hey, there's these new products that release. So like, let's say 14th gen Intel processors come out with the latest onboard or iGPU, right? Oh, guess what? You have to wait to upgrade to that if you're on Linux. You can't just go full bore with it like you can on Windows.
Right.
And, when you're a company and you rely on having uptime, that kind of matters. Like, okay, yeah, hopefully you have a Linux guy who's smart enough to figure out how to come up with some BS way around, some hardware limitation just because the chipset changed. But, like, it's hard to, you don't know where you're going to get, right? like you
Yeah.
don't know if that your Linux person is capable of doing that, and then now you have to manage the images on top of that, and then it just becomes this huge like flow of things. Whereas, guess what? Microsoft ships most drivers with the operating system. If they don't, you can pull them down from your WSS. If you're not on
Hmm.
WSS, you can get them from freaking Microsoft themselves.
Yeah. And that's something I like I said I found out in the week of Linux where something didn't work, and I was like, well, I can't use this. This kind of sucks. I have to go back to Windows. People are like, no, if you do this, it's in a different kernel version. Go use that. You're using Snap. You got to use this. Go to their website, modify these things. And I'm like, dude, I just want to use the software. Just let me. Like, it shouldn't be that hard. And Robert from Tech Address says, do you think Flatpak will help move desktop Linux out of that whole which distro issue? Shaking your head.
I don't like Flatpak, and I don't really have a good reason why I don't like it, but I guess I've just been on like Fedora for so long. Like, dude, just give me a repo that I can install from. I don't want to use. I don't need these like fancy tools to help me install the software, and it's kind of annoying. And then I guess it depends. So I could be wrong here because I don't really use Ubuntu ever, but I think with Ubuntu you can have both Flatpak and some other installer. Oh, whoa, hey, what are you doing here, camera? And they can kind of fight over what versions of software you install. So, like, if you want to install Steam, you could actually install two, not necessarily different versions of
Yeah.
Steam, but you can break your operating system because they're changing drivers or something like that. And that was a very poor explanation and not full of truths. There's a little bit of information in there because I lack the understanding. But recently I had a very similar experience to that because I was like, wait, do I use Flatpak? What happened to apt-get? Wait a minute, what's going on here? Why can't I just want to install the software? Why is it so complicated now? But
Yeah.
I think that really stems from my, like last 8 years of being dedicated to just having a repository where you're just like, sudo dnf install xyz and call it a day.
Yeah.
I'm a little biased. I'm
Yeah. And
100%
that's
biased actually.
yeah. Well, that's the thing that it comes down to. If you're involved in the Linux community and you know what you're looking for, like, oh, yeah, they've announced
That's what
that
it
for
is.
this specific distro, the Flatpak version works way better. So I got to make sure I'm installing that. The regular user who's just trying out Linux and wants to like give it a try as their desktop because they've seen Linus's video, they've seen Linus talk about it, they've seen these other channels talk about it. This is the year of the Linux desktop. Let me give it a try. And they go in and they look for specific software and they're greeted with all these different nuances for just installing software. They're not going to keep using that. It's a headache, and I know that's what comes with the territory, right? When there's so many different distros, there's going to be so many different nuances to each piece of software, and that's one of the things that's one of the pros and cons about Linux, right? Like the fact that it's so customizable and open source that people can tailor it to their liking. That's why you end up with hundreds of distros and
Yeah.
so many people will talking about which one's best and why certain softwares work best on this one and not the other one. That you don't have that problem on Mac and Windows.
Yeah,
Like,
and
there's
within
one.
in the community itself, the Linux community itself, like you'll never find two people that can agree on the same thing. Like
Yeah.
unless it's hating on Red Hat, of course, because Red Hat has a whole boatload of problems. No, but seriously, like you'll never find anybody that agree perfectly on the same topic. And there's always going to be, well, this distribution does this good, but Arch does it better, or Arch does it really well, but I kind of like Ubuntu's implementation of the similar tool or whatever. And it's just like, God, can we just pick one distro, please? And that's why I have high hopes for Steam OS, if they still call it that, because I think that'll be the, I guess, easy button for a lot of people, especially with their Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Steam Deck? Stream Deck? Steam Deck.
Steam Deck. Mhm.
Because that's like that's going to be a lot of people's first insert of Linux, and they're going to be playing games unknowingly using Linux. And I think that's pretty cool because like if they bring that to desktop somehow or to another console, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah. What percentage of people do you think even know that when they bought their Steam Deck and they turn it on that it's running Linux.
0.0001, Bob.
Yeah, it's and that's I think a huge step to get people to use it without even people know that they're using a version of Linux. That
Actually, so
way,
Travis brings up. Sorry to interrupt again.
go
Travis
ahead.
brought up a
Yeah,
good point. Android, I think, would be technically everyone's first intro to Linux.
yeah, I agree. I think more people are. Oh yeah, sorry, Peter. Is that a baby crying in the background, or is it just in my head? Yeah, I was wondering if you guys can hear it. He's he's having a fit right now. I was hoping you guys couldn't
I
hear
love
it,
chat. I love you guys.
but I apologize. I would text my wife to tell her to keep it down, but she might come in here with a knife and murder me if I would to tell her that.
Yeah, we
So
can't have that. It's too soon.
yeah, so I apologize.
She already let you
I,
get by enough with your home lab, so
I
don't need to
agree.
push more
Yeah, it's
boundaries.
a fine line that I don't plan on walking. Um, but yeah, no, Android too. It's 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 certainly a step in the right direction if your end game is to have regular people who aren't necessarily tech savvy or know even care about running Linux to be able to use it without even knowing. To
That's
kind
the
of
ultimate goal.
yeah, but yeah, I think the Steam Deck is certainly has the best chances of making it as a daily driver. And
It's
I
mostly plug
mean,
and play, which is about perfect.
yeah, I had a Steam Deck for a couple of weeks and I was messing around with it using the desktop mode. It has some growing pains and
Oh yeah.
quite a few things to work out, but out of the box, I mean, especially for what it was or what it is fantastic. Um, and speaking of gaming, you do more gaming than I do these days. We'll shift a bit to the hardware topics. Is right now a decent time to build a gaming PC if you're looking to finally do it now that there's GPUs available?
So admittedly, I I think I've become I can't figure I don't know what the right word is. Not desensitized. I guess out of touch with with everything because YouTube has definitely influenced my buying decisions and my recommendations and stuff. Never in my life would I've been like, oh, $1,700 for a GTX 4090 or RTX 4090, no problem. So
Yeah,
I'm a little out of touch with that. Is now a good time? I think so. I've heard everyone say that hardware is available. I've also seen a lot of rumors about problems with games not having enough VRAM, which is obviously not a problem I'm going to experience when I'm running a 4090, like, some PC Master Race guy.
yeah,
And so I honestly don't know. I haven't kept up with prices because honestly, like my community who watches regularly has kind of pushed me into this realm of who even looks at the price tag, which sounds really bad to say now that I said that out loud.
yeah.
Feel
It's
kind of feel
it's
kind of gross. Can we rewind this and let's like right
Nope,
over
you're
that?
live. It said we're putting that on your
No.
tombstone, etched in. Who even looks at the price tag? SPX Labs. Um, no, I think I went to. I had a first-hand experience with this the other day because one of my good friends was looking to upgrade his gaming PC, and I was like, "Yeah, now's a good time. There's hardware available. We're
I
not
know the
dealing with
used market's popping.
the used market is popping. So right now, it used to be. I remember before the big chip shortage and crypto mining boom, you could build a decent gaming PC for $500. I remember $500 was the like. If you got $500, you want to play PC games, you're good. When the chip shortage happened, crypto boom, COVID, that kind of trifecta of terrible stuff, it there was no possible way.
Oh yeah.
CPUs were expensive, RAM was expensive, GPUs were non-existent. There was no way you were building a $500 PC. Used is a completely different story. You could get a used PC, but in terms of new retail hardware, it's impossible. Today, that's possible. I would say the level of hardware you're getting has kind of shifted in terms of GPUs. You can still get a pretty decent CPU for around $150, $200. But GPUs, it used to be like entry level was like a $200 GPU. Then it went up to like 300, 400. Top of the line was like $600 GPU. Now, NVIDIA, they only have down to the 4070 right now in their current lineup. So they have the 4090, 4080, 4070 Ti, and the 4070. And the cheapest one, I think the 4070 retails MSRP at like $700. So if you're looking at brand new hardware, for the brand new lineup, you're not building a $500 PC. You can go with the 3000 series, the used market, and snag a 3050, which I think is a fantastic GPU for a budget PC build, and still get within that $500-ish range. But yeah, for some reason, RAM's cheap now. CPUs have come back down to earth. They're relatively cheap, or where they
I
should
think they're
be.
still expensive. I mean, the
The high end
what?
is definitely. I would say the high end, like GPUs, has definitely gone up to where your high end is like 600. I've seen $700 for 13900K when it first launched, and the 7950X. But Intel and AMD are making really solid, like entry level processors now that are well worth the money at the budget range.
I don't remember how much I paid for the Intel 3770K. I want to say it was like $350 brand new, and I rode that CPU all the way up until Haswell, because they used to be, I don't want to say so good, but I felt like you got a lot more life out of them. And hell, 4 cores was still good pre-COVID, or I feel like pre-COVID.
Four cores was like from like the 2000 series, even like the Core 2 Quad back in the day, like the Q6600 was like 4 cores. I'm pretty sure it was 4 cores, 8 threads, and you had 4 cores, 8 threads all the way up to like the 7700K.
Yeah,
like that was standard for years.
exactly.
And then the 8000 series came along, and they're like, hey, check this out, 6 cores, 12 threads. And then
so,
AMD, go ahead.
Yeah, and so back then, the only reason why I even upgraded my 3770K, I upgraded to a 5960X, actually. Crazy expensive. That was a $1,200 CPU. But you couldn't find a CPU that had PCIe lanes like the 5960X did. I think that sucker came with like 48 PCI lanes or something crazy, which was perfect for experimenting in the home lab with, because you could throw tons of stuff in there and not even bat an eye. Now, CPUs, they come with what, like 12, 22, 24? You get like no PCIe lanes.
I think you get 20.
That's something ridiculous.
For the most part. And that's something I personally have experienced. You don't give a shit about PCI lanes when you're just a regular person shopping for a computer. You're like, oh, this has 20 PCI lanes. This has 128 PCI lanes. You're like, I don't care.
What does that even mean?
I'm plugging your GPU. Does it work with my GPU? That's all I care about.
Yeah, exactly.
And my first interaction was when I turned my Ryzen system into a home server, and I had a GPU in there, and then I was like, wait, I don't have any PCI lanes left to throw in another GPU or a 4x4x NVMe splitter. So I'm like, oh wait, PCI lanes matter. That's why everyone's always talking about them in server systems.
And so it's funny because I still run the 5960X to this day, and it still has more PCIe lanes than most of the CPUs I have that are modern. I mean, of course, they're desktop CPUs, but
Yeah.
the 13900K, which is, I don't want to say it's supposed to be the extreme series by any means, but even the new extreme series, they don't have any PCIe lanes. I feel like you're actually getting less for your money today, and you're paying more but for less features in a way. I mean, you're technically getting more because okay, now we have quick sync, which is absolutely
Hmm.
amazing, but I mean, I need my PCIe lanes, especially if I'm in the home lab community or if you're a streamer. Like, you have all these gadgets now that you need to stick in your CPUs. Well, I guess it's not true because they have quick sync. I don't know. The problem could definitely arise, but if you're just like pure desktop, pure gaming, nothing extraneous, it definitely doesn't matter. But I think for
Yeah, I
us in the
think
home lab community, that's something a lot of people overlook all the time, especially with Ryzen. I love Ryzen. I run 2 Ryzen servers. They're great, but there's not enough PCIe lanes, and I'd be willing to pay top dollar for some extra PCIe lanes at that same performance level.
And I think both Intel and AMD have kind of figured this out because Intel started out with the, was it the HE high, what is their lineup? They used to be the X series of their CPUs. Um, it sat between their regular, just like core CPUs and their Xeons. It was like the high performance, shit, I can't remember the acronym they used for it. But those were like the Consumer Plus series, and I believe they came with more PCI lanes. And then they stopped doing that. They don't make those anymore.
Yeah, and
And
look at their
Ryzen,
workstation CPUs. It's the same story.
yeah, and then AMD came along and
HEDT,
introduced
yeah.
yeah, HEDT, is that, yeah. Um, and then AMD came along and said, hey, check out Threadripper. You want something between um, consumer and Epic? You want Threadripper. It's got the high performance of a consumer CPU with the PCI lanes and I believe ECC support. Ryzen has ECC
Yeah.
support for most of them, but the motherboards don't anyway. You get kind of a meshing of both worlds. And Intel did away with theirs, and now you're seeing AMD kind of do away with Threadripper. They're only available now in direct to partner systems. So I don't think you can really go out and buy their latest chips. I think they call it like a pro model or something. It's not like it used to be where you can just go to the store and buy a brand new Threadripper model and throw it in your system. So I don't know. I assume they put their money where their mouth is, and if there were enough people wanting consumer chips with more PCI lanes, they'd keep doing it. But I think we're in the minority of people that
Just kidding,
want
Travis.
those.
That was just a joke.
What happened? What did I miss?
We're bantering as
Oh,
well.
yeah, I'd say most people don't want that. I think we're in the minority of people that want consumer chips with more lanes.
Yeah, and so Threadripper went totally to the extreme with it. They're like, max power consumption, max heat. You'll give you everything, and the price point was extremely high too. And it's like, no, you've gone too far. You too far, too much. Like, thank you,
Yeah,
but no, I dial it back just a little bit. You know, get that price closer or less than $1,000. Yes, please give me the PCIe lanes. But you know, now you're giving me way too much. You're giving me way more than I possibly want. I want, you know, a 3800X or whatever the newest line is, 7800X. I want that same number of cores with the same number of PCI lanes, the efficiency and the performance. Just give me
yeah,
that. And if it costs 200 extra dollars, then so be it. Like, I don't need a freaking Threadripper with 128 cores or whatever the hell they're running nowadays. Like, it's too much. It'd be great, don't get me wrong, but it's way too much and expensive. And the motherboards are insane. I could
yeah,
buy like 10 used servers for the price of a freaking Threadripper motherboard.
yeah. I know the pain. It's. I just think there's not enough demand for it. I mean, if there was, they'd keep doing it, but I I just don't think it's there. But I'm not gonna shed a tear for it because I've never owned a Threadripper. I've never owned a HEDT Intel chip. So I bought the Epic chip because I was debating about going Threadripper, but I was like, I don't need 5 gigahertz on at that time 32 core 64 threads sipping 300 plus watts. So I went with a more power efficient Epic chip that had 128 PCIe Gen 4 lanes, and it's been fantastic for me. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they're headed with that.
And what makes me even more upset is Intel, they intentionally remove, so they have like a workstation line of CPUs, right? Xeons. They take away QuickSync. And it's like, why? That would be perfect to leave QuickSync on because people like us would be able to take advantage of QuickSync on there, and you'd be able to get pretty high performance because the workstation Xeons, or they're not really equivalent to the i7s, but they're kind of like i7s, and you get ECC RAM, and you get tons of benefits of moving to that platform. Yeah, the clock speeds are a little bit lower, but they're more stable. But why can't I buy like a 2170p with a freaking iGPU on it, or with QuickSync on it? Why? Why do I have to spend more money or not even get it at all? Or like, just what are you doing? And then also, there's no PCIe lanes. It's so frustrating. There
should be like
hard to make a buying decision.
There should be like a build your own CPU like thing on Intel's site, like Build-A-Bear. You can go in and pick your features that you want on your CPU, and it just spits one out for you.
That'd be awesome. So no idea what all this has to do with. Is it a good time to build
it doesn't,
PC? But
that's how this works. You present a topic and go down whatever rabbit hole presents itself. But I don't know what the future holds for these platforms. I have just accepted the fact that my workstations will have a GPU and then like 4 slots left over if I want to throw in like a NIC or something. And then if I want to go with my servers, I'll just use Epic for those, or go with older Xeons or something. So I've kind of just accepted that fate. I have seen the new Xeons and the plans with those, and they look pretty cool. But again, price point is always a considering factor, a major factor. So until we get some actual pricing and see what those are about, I'm just accepted my fate. But yeah, I don't know. I don't do much gaming, honestly, anymore. I care more about when new GPUs and new hardware is released. I skip past the gaming benchmarks and go to like the editing and workstation performance of them, because any free time I have now, I'm just editing.
Yeah, editing takes a lot of effort.
Instead of playing games anymore. So,
and it's funny on the flip side, like I've pretty much removed that from my life now too, because like I said, I'm on Final Cut Pro, and now that we have the M1 chips, like I don't even have to think about hardware performance anymore because Final Cut Pro and HEIC, whatever codec they use is just like hyper optimized. So it's just so efficient. And it's crazy to have a laptop that uses 21 watts while editing, an hour worth of 4K video, and it's just so snappy. Like on the Intel platform, that was unheard of, even with GPUs.
No, I stand by the MacBook. Like, it is by far the best laptop you can buy right now, and no one will convince me otherwise. My MacBook, my M1 Pro MacBook, like, it just tears through anything I throw at it, from video editing to coding, and the battery life is absolutely freaking insane. Like, I'll be using it all day, and I'm like, shit, dude, I probably got to plug this in. I'll check, and I have like 50% battery left. I'm like...
It's nuts, yeah.
And it's completely quiet. Like, the fans hardly ever ramp up. And any performance Windows machine I had before was like, oh, you're opening VS Code? Well, your fans are going to start screaming now for no reason. I'm just like, fantastic.
And it makes you wonder why freaking switches are so loud too. You're like, how is this MacBook doing so much and so powerful yet it makes no noise? And I have this switch that just screams anytime I plug anything into it.
Yeah, that's mind blowing. Like thermal performance on those
Yeah.
things is bonkers.
And that
But
was the long story of how out of touch I am with the current gaming PC building market.
well, I think a lot of people in the last couple of years have just by the product of the environment that building a PC and getting into that ecosystem was just terrible. Like no one wanted to build a PC because GPUs were non-existent, not available. Why would I even get invested into this when it just sucks? And now it's like, oh, GPUs are available now. Great, I don't care. Thanks,
I was
but
in that boat. My Titan X finally started artifacting. I was unwilling to pay the exorbitant prices for a 3000 series card. And also, oh, by the way, it's July. So any day now, NVIDIA is about to release the 4000 series graphics cards. And it's like, what do
mhm.
I do? So, I bought an AMD card from a friend on the cheap. I believe it was like a 7600 XT or something like that. I ended up flashing it with a
Yeah,
different BIOS, so it throws off the model number for me. But I bought that used for like $400, which was a great deal at the time because we had just come off COVID. That there was a crypto mining craze. He could have probably sold that thing for $800 and made a profit, or even mined on it.
yeah,
But anyway, he didn't, and so I was using that for a while, but then I kind of broke it with overclocking and those BIOS flashing. And so I was like stuck, and I was forced into a position where I finally had to cave, and an opportunity came up for a 3070 Ti, and I paid $799 for it, and it still kind of like eats at me to this day how much I paid for that thing. Um, but I had to bite the bullet. What were my options? The used market was
yeah,
insane. Um, there was nothing really to buy, and it was the only thing available. I happened to be at the store while it was there, so I jumped on that grenade. It
yeah.
sucked, but I did it.
At the very peak of all that, I bought my 3080 Ti for like $1,700, and it was disgusting. Like, but yeah, at the time, like that was if you wanted performance, and I needed something, not needed. I wanted something more powerful for editing. That there was nowhere else you can turn. There was no used market. I mean, the used market was worse than retail. Retail, you had to enter a lottery to get one. So it was like, what can you do? I mean, it sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and
So
so I just Google or eBay searched like a Titan X Pascal, like how much it goes for now. I think it's like around $250. And
nice.
it's crazy that if you're gaming on 1080p, that graphics card or even like a 1080 Ti will
Yeah,
blow. Well, I don't know. It's not going to blow every game out of the water, but it's going to blow the vast majority of games out of the water, and it'll still play AAA titles extremely well, especially at 1080p. For 250
yeah,
bucks, that's a pretty stellar deal.
yeah. And that's like you're getting to the point where I reviewed a 30 RTX 3050, which is 50 series, like bottom tier of their lineup, and it just smoked like 1080p gaming. Like
Nice.
it's like the floor has gotten so high with modern GPUs that yeah, you could get a budget one today, or you can go a couple of generations back and get a top tier, and both are perfectly fine for gaming at 1080p.
Yeah.
Um, we've hit 2 hours now. We're gonna start wrapping it up here. Uh,
What, we're not pulling a
I,
12-hour stream? You said we could go for 12 hours before we started the stream.
I would not make it that long. I would get dragged downstairs to come deal with the baby because my shift technically starts at 9. So,
Just bring the baby on
um,
stream. Time to introduce it to the. Well, actually, you've introduced your baby already on Twitter and probably other
yeah,
platforms as well. But
yeah, I brought him on for a second last live stream, but
okay.
he won't last very long. He'll either be sleeping or screaming, neither of which is entertaining for anybody. So
But you're the entertainment. He's there for the oohs and ahs.
that is true. But I appreciate you so much for hopping on and doing the stream with me. It was awesome. That honestly flew by
It
really
did.
quickly. That was extremely fun. I'd like to have you on again sometime in the future if you want to join and talk about some more nerdy stuff. But For everyone out there in the chat, I appreciate all of you hanging out with us. Mr. Allen, Travis, Peter, Robert, probably missing a few of you, Michael, Mr. Keck,
My boy
who did I
Daniel.
miss? Yeah, Mr.
And Jay.
Jeff Gearling. Hell yeah. So I appreciate all of you guys. It's been awesome. If you want to talk more about tech, head over to Discord, link down in the description below. Go subscribe to Stefano's channel, SPX Labs, over the link in the description below as well.
Don't do that.
He will not tell you to like or subscribe, but I will. And that'll do it for this stream. See you guys next time.